Hello, everyone. I don't think any of us on the Zoom meeting heard an intro, but I'm Kristen Graham. What can I say about myself? I've spent I started my career as a nurse in aged care, and yeah, 30 years later, I'm working back in aged care and focused on isolation and loneliness. The last 10 years or so, I've been building technology to solve problems that most tech founders wouldn't bother with. But I find myself solving problems with technology in a really meaningful way. And why I started Dossy, named after my grandma, was while I was living in San Francisco, scaling my previous business, which was VideoMyJob. I was one of her main carers. I was the one that broke her out of aged care and took her on adventures. And living in San Francisco, I wanted to take her across the Golden Gate Bridge. And she'd been to San Francisco 16 times. And
what do you locally know?
oh, we've got feedback. Should I keep going?
You keep going, Kristen, please. Carry on. The rest of us can hear.
And yeah, so going across the Golden Gate Bridge, we had so many troubles trying to connect through video. Now, she was 93, living alone, and she had just started, being affected by dementia. And she changed her telephone provider 3 times. Now, she used to work for Telstra. I used to work for Telstra, and I set her up on a Telstra, one of those plans that were really cheap for ex-employees and she changed 3 times from just answering her home phone and being scammed into changing. Not only it was not only her phone, it was her utilities and everything. And her immediate family started to make her frightened not to answer the phone anymore. So she just withdrew. She withdrew from all technology, and trying to connect with her overseas was just impossible. And we just thought there's got to be a better way. So I researched, we tried Zoom, we tried mainstream apps like WhatsApp and Messenger, and she could do it with someone there helping, but she couldn't be empowered to do it on her own terms and at a time where she wanted to talk to someone. And her family was spread around the world. She's got a brother in Thailand, and she's got 2 of her daughters in Perth and a son in Queensland. And my mum and I were in Melbourne, and she lived an hour away from me in a nursing home, and it was just really hard. And I just thought it can't be this hard. And COVID kicked in, and it got even harder. And nurses are busy around the clock, and most of the time they're not necessarily tech literal. They don't have the technical or digital literacy either. And then I worked out how to organize a video call. I had to call up, organize the video call, and they would call me at a time that suited the nurses. And then it was always in the middle of a meeting or in the middle of the night, because I was in San Francisco. And it was just like, this can't be happening. I've got to solve this problem. This is a huge problem. So I started on the journey of developing Dossy, and it was with a napkin, or it was a piece of paper and a pen, and really designing what my grandma, Dossy, would want to have on a screen. And it needed to be simple. It needed to be intuitive. It needed to be no bells and whistles, big buttons, and her leathery fingers really struggled to touch the screen sometimes. So anyway, that started off in Uniting Agewell, a provider in Melbourne, reached out and said, oh my goodness, you've designed and built what we've been trying to do for 3 years, and we're struggling. And would you be interested in a pilot? And I'm saying, yeah, of course. And then Melbourne Uni got on board, and we started a research project, and our first pilot was really successful. It was incredible, and it was called Family Connect, and we were able to connect older people that have got no experience with technology or devices. So they've never owned a mobile phone. They just rely on the landline. Or they did previously, but had started to disengage with any type of communication technology. So, you know, the bar was really set low in terms of what I wanted to create, in terms of intuitiveness, accessibility, all of those things. And the pilot went really well, but 50% of the participants didn't have enough family to make it a worthwhile data, like worthwhile data to, or it wasn't, they didn't have enough family around them, or they didn't have family that wanted to participate. And so I thought, well, we need to build a community of volunteers. So somebody has always got somebody to talk to, whether they've got family or not. There's got to be a way to make it really seamless. And we all know, and we probably all experienced it through COVID, that in-person connection, you can't beat it. But the next best thing is video, I believe. It's better than just voice with a phone, where you can see someone, you can read their emotion, you can get a sense of what's going on. And so that's what I wanted to create. Dossy, it's a place for meaningful connections on demand. And whether you've got family that are there, or if you don't, well, you can talk to someone. And when I told my grandma that I was building this piece of technology, she said, "Oh, that's lovely, dear. Everyone deserves somebody to talk to." And then I told her that I was naming it Dossy, and yeah, it was just a beautiful moment. She passed away from dementia, so I was able to allow her to experience her legacy in the flesh, and it made life a lot easier for not only her but also the family around her. So that's what Dossy's all about. I'm getting emotional, sorry. But I'm going to share my screen, and you'll be able to, yeah. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. And now I'm going to get a little bit more professional and pull myself together. I haven't gone off the cuff about my grandma and the story and for a long time, actually. But yeah, the problem's bigger than just my grandma. It's a lot broader. And the reality is that there are so many obstacles in the way when people build technology, and they're not necessarily thinking of the end user. And in aged care, a lot of founders or organizations create technology for those around the individual. And what we've done at Dossy, we've put the older person or our user in the center of everything we've done. And you can, you know, it's hard, and you're all techies, and, you know, building software in a startup is really hard to find your product market fit. But building software for the most vulnerable user in the world, it's really hard, and they're the most underrepresented user throughout innovation in the world. And I think our awards there that you can see, you know, it validates our work, and it's our mission and vision that really, and our purpose that really keeps us going. Like, Dossy exists to build a more connected tomorrow for everyone, and we make virtual social care accessible through simple, meaningful video calls designed to combat social isolation and loneliness among older Australians and beyond. At the heart of Dossy is our circle of social support model. The inner circle is family and friends providing familiar emotional connection. And when family isn't available, our trained volunteers step in, offering companionship day or night. And aged care providers use Dossy to enhance the quality of life for those they care for and reduce pressure on overstretched staff. And together, we close the gap between loneliness and connection. So Dossy's responding to not only my grandma's needs, but also a growing unmet need in aged care and dementia care. Social connection isn't a luxury, it's essential. Loneliness and isolation are proven to worsen dementia and are as harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. With dementia on track to become Australia's leading cause of death, digital literacy becomes a critical barrier to ageing in place. So we spoke about my grandma and all the trouble she had. On average, she spent 11 waking hours alone each day. And sadly, that is Australia's average for those that live alone or are in aged care where they're not getting that social connection on a regular basis. So the current landscape shows a widening social gap, and our population is aging, workforce shortages are growing, family caregivers are stretched thin. Meanwhile, aged care reform is pushing towards aging in place, which is great. But why isn't social connection being prioritised? And I just want to show you a video now, and hopefully you can hear it.
When in the older days, now I'm going back 40 or even 50 years ago, and I'm nearly 100, I'll be 100 in August. I knew everybody in the street. Now I don't know anybody.
Wingate Street. It was a good street. I loved living there. Yeah. Yes, yes, I really enjoyed it there.
This is the trouble. There's too many old people that are just left old on their own. Now, all my family, they all live country. I see my daughter, she comes down from Gisborne once a week to see me. And my other daughter, she lives at Swan Hill, I haven't seen for 2 or 3 years. And you just get lonely at times.
Oh gosh, I'll never forget those 3 little boys. Oh, they were lovely. They were such good fun.
I go to bed every night, one worrying where you are.
My father's land, all my days I will sing in praise of your forest waters, your shining
Forest waters, will you? Make sure you do what you do to in the little back room.
by my father's hand.
Oh dear, I think I still say that sometimes. Ah, look at that. There's the old lugger.
And people just don't understand. Living on your own, when you're 99, you do get lonely. and with the computer I've got now, and I can ring people, Dossy, I can turn round and I can contact people all round the place. Last week I had 2 people from Sydney talk to, and they don't realise how glad I was to talk to them. Thank you.
Hey, how are you? Woohoo! Hope everyone was able to see that, but I wanted to share that is that every one of those individuals never had the experience of using video calling, and it's changed their lives. It's now become part of their life. It's a lifeline to the outside of world. The lady in the video is my grandma, Dossy, and you can see she's so articulate, even though her memory had struggled, but you could see there her memory was absolutely spot on, reminiscing. And I think video gives that individual the ability to engage in a different way than just voice. But up until now, there hasn't been an accessible way to do that. So yeah, all of those users stop using technology, even landlines, due to scams or complexity. Since launching Dossy, I've spoken to over 130 investors, and many asked, why reinvent video calls? Why not just use Zoom or WhatsApp? Now, I get it, but do they really understand the end user? And those platforms weren't made for my grandma or for the people we serve. So I've started making the most accessible platform to ensure it's right then for anyone. So everyone loves intuitive tech. But those mainstream apps, they require an email, a calendar, complex navigation, and passwords and things like that. So we built Dossy designed to be accessible in every way. There's no login, there's no password. It's a code that your next of kin have set up and created. And once you put the code in, that's it. And we provide, you can see my screen, these stands, you probably saw it in the video. It's all set up and it never logs out, and it's always on. We lock it into single app mode. And for those users that don't have their own device, we've partnered with Apple to supply refurbished devices. So at the moment, we're about to launch a campaign with Apple from a primary school where they lease iPads in WA. The primary school recycled them to Phone Cycle, who we work with, to refurbish our devices and give them to our Dossy users to make connection seamless. And we lock them into single app mode. Oh, it stopped sharing again. Should I share again? I'm sharing again. We lock them into single app mode and make sure that we do all the tech support behind the scenes. And with one gentle tap, users can connect. The name's displayed on the video. There's no mirror video. You might have recognized that, and I removed that because my grandma said, oh my goodness, who's that ugly face? And she became more concerned and focused on her face rather than who she was talking to. And when we sit down and have a cup of tea with someone, we don't see our person, our double, sitting there with us or opposite us. So I just removed it. So little things like that we've co-designed every step of the way. But there's also a talk to someone new button when they feel like a chat. And our volunteers are the heart of Dossy. They include retirees, students, professionals, parents, and it's people that want to give back in a real flexible but inclusive way. The amount of times I've spoken to volunteers who struggle with mobility, they still want to volunteer, but they can't do it in person. So we give them that opportunity to do it on their terms. And all volunteers are vetted and trained, including in dementia care and meaningful communication. And they help reduce isolation, especially for those who don't have family nearby. And they just ease the social load also for caregivers. Our smart calendar allows families and volunteers to set their availability. So when a Dossy user initiates a call, we broadcast that call to the most available volunteer, and whoever answers first connects. And then we use positive matching, duty of care, thumbs up, thumbs down after every call to then prioritize positive matches over time. It's fast, it's human, and sometimes 5 minutes is all it takes to change someone's day. Our provider dashboard gives aged care teams the tools to support connection at scale. They can add users and invite their family members. They can register and train their private volunteers, and they can monitor engagement through reports. They also receive real-time duty of care alerts, and it helps providers proactively support emotional well-being, but also eases the frontline pressure. Dossy's affordable, it's flexible and simple. Our Connect plan is for users with their own device and is $19 a month for unlimited family connections and unlimited connections with volunteers. Our Engage plan includes the refurbished iPad with remote management, and then the Freedom plan adds unlimited data. There's no setup fees, no lock-in contracts, unlimited calls, and we're actively refining our enterprise model for broader rollout. Unlike others in the competitive landscape, others focus on expensive but simplified hardware. Our focus is on software, and we're device agnostic. But also have an eco-conscious device plan, and we're designed to increase digital access, not just video calls, but social support. In our ARIA-funded pilot, we had 21 older adults who had 0 to no digital literacy, and we also had 21 volunteers. We had some great results: less loneliness, more confident using technology that they'd never used before and shied away from, stronger relationships with family, and some of our users met grandchildren, great-grandchildren they never knew they had. And yeah, people started to meet new people and started creating new friends. With our volunteers, we match on availability and previous positive matches. But through this pilot, we started to match on interests and languages. And from a family call with family members, yes, there's a lot more connections to family, but the average call time is 5 minutes. With the volunteer community, although there's less calls per user, the average time was 20 minutes. After we started matching on interests and preferences like age and language, our duration went from 20 minutes to 45 minutes. Our average call time can vary from week to week, but some of the connections can spend hours on the call with each other and multiple times a week, sometimes daily, which is really cool to see. And we're building on this in our next pilot and really deepening personalization and making it easier to make a repeat connection. Our roadmap is shaped by real insights. So our users supply feedback and we act on that feedback. And we believe that's just co-design in its truest form. So for example, missed calls at the moment, we don't show that on a Dossy user's iPad because it's not connected to a phone, so they don't have a call log as such. So we're looking into how we can refine that and ensuring our matching engine is creating value. So not just for a Dossy user to connect with a volunteer to get the value there, but for volunteers to get the value back from our older generation as well. And that can come through sharing experiences. So we want to enable users to reconnect with familiar faces as well and start to create an inner circle of volunteers. So one user might have 5 volunteers that they can reach out to at any time or connect to somebody new and continue building that. We're also looking at using the Apple Assistive Access mode. And this is where some of our users saying, oh, we want to use the iPad for more than just Dossy. Now, we've done a lot of trial and error. The reason we put Dossy in single app mode is so they don't get lost. They don't lose the screen. They've got their contacts always on and they shift up and down and rotate for multiple reasons. And I'll share that because that's a true co-design feature as well. My mum and my aunties would say, we're not getting calls from Dossy. And I said, oh. So I went in and tested what's going on, show me how you use the iPad, and she would just call me because I was on top of the list. So she was just calling me because I'm getting heaps of calls. It's awesome. But so I started to rotate it for those that need a little bit of help to share that load of callers. But obviously the calendar's there also, so you can make yourself unavailable at any time. But yeah, we want to build users' confidence and independence in the digital world. So we're experiencing and trialing Apple's assistive mode. We're also exploring ways for aged care carers to use Dossy to check in. So a lot of our rural and regional and remote clients or older people that live in those areas might only see a carer once a week or once a fortnight. So we're working with aged care providers to increase that, not only double, but triple the amount of face time they receive. Same in person, but let's make it more impactful and have more check-ins. So Dossy is a way of being able to do that in a real accessible way. We're also in partnership with Champion Life, where they struggle to provide the guided video exercises for their clients because, again, accessible devices in the home for some people is a real stretch, and then to get them to use it is another stretch. And then get them to have the right data plan is another stretch. All of these things are realities for a lot of people. So with physios and carers in remote locations, they're thin on the ground. So we're looking at partnering with Champion Life to provide guided video X's based on an OT's or a physio's direction. We provide the right videos for the right person. And then when they press that button, press to begin, one of our volunteers will pop up and they're there to oversee that exercise, make sure it's completed in a safe way. It's not going to be for everybody, but for those who would help is another way for Dossy to start to branch it out and not just be for social, but for health and well-being. We're looking at different ways of using AI as well. 3 years ago, talking to my grandma, imagine if you could talk to Pa again, and Pa could come up here and you could talk to him and you could see him and you could hear his voice, and he could check in with you on a daily basis. And because she had dementia, I thought that would be quite helpful for her. But then my values of human connection first, it was a real struggle. And there were some investors at the time really interested in that direction, and I chose to go the other way, down the path of human connection. I believe there's a space for AI, and we're exploring it in every way. First, though, we're going to explore what can AI help us with to enhance meaningful human connection first, whether that be through family members. I know my brothers really struggled ringing my grandma. They didn't know what to say. My mum would hate when she repeated herself and she'd get frustrated. So AI can be there for a way to help use the tone in the right way, and also help both callers think of things to nurture that conversation. And who doesn't like noughts and crosses or words with friends and things like that to keep connection going? But we will explore synthetic AI or AI-driven companionship. The University of New South Wales has developed Viv, and she's being a real help with some people living with dementia. But Viv has been created through lived experience. So she's someone that you can communicate with, and he'll regularly say, oh, is that the time? Oh, it's time for coffee. Oh, I forget things all the time. And it's about education, but also helping help that individual feel like it's so normal, where we can all be forgetful, but building that calm, consistent person or companion in their life. But we'll continue to explore where that fits into Dossy. So as a social enterprise, Dossy's committed to long-term impact on people, the planet, and the aged care system. But bringing Dossy to life has been deeply rewarding, and there's no but in there. But it's also been incredibly hard. We've proven the model, we've shown the impact, but we still face 5 core challenges: funding and sustainability, scaling without the right investment, or the who pays model. If any of you are aware about the new support at home model, we've really come up against like a real hard no all the time when there's no funding, and individuals with funding, they're stretched with what they can afford. So yeah, it's still working with providers to see, well, how can we make it valuable for the provider so they pay, and then, roll it out to their clients as they see fit. Marketing's really expensive when you're trying to reach family members, because most of our users are not necessarily looking for this type of tool. It's usually the family member or an aged care provider. So that's been a real tough area. Data security and privacy is vital, and it's complex and resource intensive, meaning expensive, but it means everything to us. So we'll continue making it safe, secure, and accessible. And the aged care reality, the system is conservative. They're under pressure and they're slow to adopt innovation. And implementation and adoption, even simple tech, requires time, leadership buy-in, and the right partners ready to collaborate with innovative solutions. But despite all of the challenges, we remain committed, and because loneliness is real for all of us, let alone someone that doesn't have the, you know, the resources around them to contain and continue to connect. And connection matters, and Dossy really can make a difference. So thank you for your time. Open to your thoughts, your feedback, and any ideas of how we can overcome some of the challenges we've faced and still continue to face. I'm going to stop that share and put myself back on the screen.
I think we've most of the audience have been muted, but thank you very much. That was excellent. And it's really relevant to our club because the average age of our members is 80. We started off in the late 1980s when the average age was 40. And guess what? The average age has gone up year by year. One of the problems we find at the moment is that we can't attract young people to our group. We do provide our own services. We've got the thing called iHelp, which is internet help. And those volunteers will help some of our members who are having trouble. But of course, you know, that's limited to those people that are on iHelp. So yeah, if we could engage with an organisation like yours, I think that would be great. So thank you very much.
Welcome. How many are active users? So Barry's asked a question with Dossy, how many are active users? We have over 1,400 users in 23 countries. A lot of that organic growth came from our pilots with family members that have been overseas. So we've got Dossy users, yeah, all over the place. Or not Dossy users, Dossy family users. Majority of our paid users, we only commercialized late last year. So we have you know, a number of paid users in the system through aged care providers. We're about to embark on another pilot with Bolton Clark and a few other aged care providers. I think it's been really hard to get to the individuals who need it most, as you can imagine. How are they learning about us? And the funding model, both in residential aged care and support at home, are changing from the 1st of July. So we're excited about that because there looks to be shifts in the government model that will allow a tool like Dossy to be subsidised, co-funded, or fully government funded, which will change and provide an easier approach to getting started. We have about 65 volunteers on the platform at the moment supporting our users, and we have a wait list. We'll start actioning that wait list come June, where our new pilots kick off, and we'll be needing more support.
Do you see that with the Labor government coming in that you stand more of a chance of getting funding?
Look, to be honest, I think momentum hopefully will, you know, I met one of the aged care ministers, Jed Kearney, who's Labor. She was in my district, Darebin district, and I went and demonstrated Dossy to her, and she's like, this is brilliant. You know, we struggle in being able to maintain the levels of volunteers for social companionship. you've got to meet my team. And so I met all of her team. I presented Dossy, and it just stopped. So there is something that, it's really hard to provide a real, true, honest service to those who need it most. And, you know, I tell you what, when you can see that people need it and others are making the decision for you, it's really, it's tough. But I'm hoping any government can see the need and support tools like Dossy. There's not too many tools like Dossy, though, I'd have to say. But yeah, I'm hopeful. That's all I can say. I might end it here, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to chat again. And anyone's welcome to contact me on my email, and I'm sure Kirsten can share that.
Am I being heard here and at home? Hope so. Okay, something that's been on my mind for a long, long time is the aging of our organisation. And I'm sure that somewhere someone will have done a PhD on the fact that when an organisation gets to a certain age, particularly with, as John Hall said before, an average age of 84. In fact, the survey we did about a year and a half ago, the median age was, John said average age of 80, the median age of those who responded to the survey was about 84. As many people over 84 as under 84. And this hypothetical PhD thesis, I think, would show that organizations just lose their vigor if they don't get reinvigorated. And I hate to be sort of talking in these sorts of terms, but that is the case with our club. I'm delighted. Oh, one thing I'd like to know, of those of you who are not sort of actually officiating here, we've got a record number of people in the room today. Who is here because of that specific speaker topic, or just because, hey, I'm going to go to a meeting for once? Topic? Meeting for once? Topic? Okay, so the topic is, this is sort of interesting input to what attracts people to actually come back into the room and participate. How many people have we got at home? Does anyone know? On Zoom? 42, so we're sort of about 50 people altogether who are not doing some official task. Okay. The other thing I've observed is that of the few new members we've got, they are largely the people who are putting in the energy to do stuff. Now, this is not meant to be criticism of the long-standing members. It's just that's how people operate, I think. So we are trying to take that sort of insight on board and work out how we can do it to keep the club relevant and useful and alive. The club has often been referred to as an RACV for computers. Now, I have a problem with that because who's a member of RACV? Why are you a member of RACV? Because just in case your car breaks down, you get some help. Does anyone here actively contribute to RACV? No. Does anyone vote on the board? No. I don't even know how to get the papers. Actually, I probably shouldn't be in RACV anymore because I smashed my car up 18 months ago, but our house is insured with the RACV and we've got emergency, fix the plumbing with RACV and what have you. So in fact, even the RACV have reinvented and shifted their emphasis carefully, even though their relevance is still, as a motor car organization, is still very much relevant. Their relevance is relevant. Wonderful. But for us, who uses an IBM PC anymore? Actual IBM? We have new members in this club who probably don't even know what IBM is or was. Just think about that. We do have some young members. They probably don't even know what IBM is, and yet our logo is based on the IBM logo. So where am I going with this rant? I'm not sure. But about 2 years ago on one of my overseas travels, I coined in my head this phrase, agile evolution. And it came off the back of the fact that there have been a number of attempts in the club, and full credit to all those people who've organized these attempts, to sit down and have a working session, to do brainstorming, to do SWOT analyses, all that usual sort of stuff, to try and come up with a strategy for taking the club forward. But how much has changed? Nothing has changed as a result of that. And my observation about that is that those sorts of things, basically, they tend to have a 5-year horizon. And because it's a 5-year horizon, basically what you get as an outcome is more of the same with maybe a cherry on top. You don't get any dramatic change that will allow the club to evolve and change over time and become and stay relevant. And I was part of one of those exercises not that long ago, 18 months ago or something like that. So this idea that came to me, by the way, as an engineer, this is totally counterintuitive to me. My career was engineering control systems, which you've got to work on day one. You don't put controls in a dangerous machine by experimenting and fiddling around and seeing what works, because that means you're going to lose fingers and thumbs and what have you. I love it. I love it when I get a bit of a laugh. So, to me, it's almost counterintuitive, but I came up with, to me, it seems that what we've got to do, we've got to just try different things and see what works. Or as Mick, who's young, Mick, I'm sad he's not here tonight, he's relatively young. Mick is very active, he's responsible for 3D printers to a great extent. Throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. And that's the direction that I'm trying to go. I think that we're going to get more, and again, it's not a criticism of the long-term members, it's not. With the younger, so my general thought on that, and I've been very bad at conveying this over the last year and a half, is that we do try different things. They should, in my mind, be still relevant to tech. I mean, we are ultimately a tech club. You will have noticed that we are morphing much more towards the maker movement, which is we like making stuff, we like 3D printing, we like electronics, all that sort of stuff. And we try different things. And we invite people to come in from outside maybe and say, hey, if you've got a passion, we can help you to develop that passion and provide you facilities. If you could start a group in our club. One of the things I've sniffed at very briefly is you can get little kilns that you can put in a microwave and fire pottery inside a kiln. That's making stuff. So if I could find somebody who's really passionate about that and would love to come in and develop a group to do that, I think that'd be pretty cool. And for existing members, if you've got something there that you're really passionate about that falls very vaguely under the heading of technology, come forward. And if we can see that there's a scope there for a new subfield or interest, I won't use the word SIG because even that is dated back to the 1970s, Silicon Valley, the hacker movement and all that. It's a concept that doesn't really survive that well today. But if you've got a passion, we will certainly look at supporting that and resourcing it. I can't suggest what it might be because I don't know, but you might have something that you're really into and you can see that other people would be into that. Let us know. We'll help to resource you. That could be something to make, it could be a craft, art even, why not? Okay, on to other matters. That's agile evolution. I hope I'll be able to communicate more about that in the coming months. Some slightly more practical things on, did we agree on the 25th in the end for the thing? Yes, I think we have, yeah. On the 25th, which is a Sunday, round about midday-ish, fine-tune it, we're going to have a social meeting here in the club rooms, and we're going to have some finger food, we're going to stand around and just socialise, a la what the lady was saying before, because it's good for the soul to socialise. And maybe just knock around a few ideas as well about what we can do to take the club forward. Everyone's welcome to come along and have a chat. You will be asked to register so we know how much tucker to get, but we will provide some finger food or something or other, and maybe a little bit of something liquid. So that's on Sunday the 25th of this month, which is about 2 weeks' time, 2.5 weeks' time. Yesterday we had a very successful day here in the club rooms with 2 back-to-back events that Kirsten had organised. Stick your hand up, Kirsten. You did something. I didn't do anything. Okay, I'll take the credit. Yeah. Yeah, with the SEV thing. So, yeah, in collaboration with Southeast volunteers, we had, in the morning, we did, was it morning, sort of ish? Yeah, a session, thank you, a session on 3D printing, and it was sort of come along and let us help you to understand what 3D printing is about. You see a couple of printers down the back there that were whirring away and printing something in rubber and something in plastic. And we did it in a very sort of loose, informal, chatty format, and it worked very well. Now we're going to be repeating that again next week on Tuesday at 1:30. After the sort of lunch break at about, I think it was at 4 o'clock, we had a gentleman from Southeast Volunteers who did a bit of a talk and presentation about artificial intelligence and using artificial intelligence and how to get the most of it, and that was very interesting. He started maybe just a slightly too higher levels. We had one gentleman in the audience who just didn't know what it was, or still didn't know what it was all about, but I learned some stuff, even though I've been using AI for quite a while. Even the first sentence he uttered, I sort of, oh, right, I now see that. So I learned quite a bit. That's going to be repeated on next Tuesday. Is going to move on to sort of the next level. So he's got 3 individual presentations. With the 3D printing, we're going to repeat basically the format of the first one. I'm sure it'll be different material to be covered. So that's the way it was. That was, Kerry Addis was part of that, and Mick took the lead. Mick Adams took the lead on that one. I sort of interjected a couple of fairly useless comments now and then. So that's on Tuesday. I'll be putting that tomorrow in the weekly. Who reads the weekly email? Good. Read it. That's actually been quite successful, and it's sort of keeping people a little bit more abreast of what's going on. To do that, I broke a huge convention, because when I first joined the club, it was no, one, whatever it is, a month, that's it. We can't do any more. But it's actually been very well received, which I'm grateful for. And it's largely produced by Marlin, by the way, our office lady, not by myself. I just do the AI illustrations at the top. Oh yeah, talk about AI. The next issue of PC Update, if the editor, again Marlin, is in agreement with it, there will be 2 articles that I generated with AI. So watch out for that. And it's actually amazing what you can do. One of them came about because I came across an article about something called atomic batteries. in one of the online journals. I can't copy that because it's copyrighted, so I just got an AI to write another one for me. No copyright. It took literally, I'm not kidding, a minute. Type in the prompt, tell me about blah, 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 500 words, please, and out it came. And I spent the next 15 minutes trying to generate an image of an atomic battery and gave up. So there you go. And I didn't steal something. The other article, I can't even remember what it's about now, but they're both generated by AIs. I'm going to, are you looking impatient there, Barry? No? I've been away, I did a cruise around Japan recently, and I'm only sort of back and getting settled in now, but I had started a program of microcontroller workshops, and Mick was, Texas was there, and anyone else here was there? No, I don't think so. That went fairly well. I've dropped the ball a bit, but I'm picking it up, so in about a fortnight on a Wednesday and a Thursday, I think it is, I'll be running those again. There's two flavors of those. One is the basics, so if you've never done anything with a microcontroller before, but you're curious, I'll be sort of showing you how to hook them up to a sensor and a flashing light or something rather like that, just to get the basic getting started steps under your belt. And the other one will sort of be a specific project where we hook some stuff up, and then the first one I did was measuring distance with an ultrasonic sensor. And again, sort of more just to get a feeling for it, so when you start to play with it on your own, you feel as though you've had a bit of an introduction. So that's going to be in about 2 weeks. I'll be putting that in the weekly email tomorrow. There's been a little bit, the last thing here, Barry, so there's been a bit of controversy about the transition to Windows 11. I know very little about that stuff, but just to say that and this has been in the weekly newsletter once, the Northern Suburbs Linux SIG are offering to run a session on maybe switching over to Linux to avoid that whole Windows 11 security fuss. I mean, my desktop computer at home can't run Windows 11 because I haven't got this special magic chip in it to provide security. So at some stage, but by about September, October, the security support for Windows 10 is going to start fading. I don't think it's going away entirely, but I'm a bit hazy about it. So you need to have thought about it and made a decision as to what to do if you're currently a Windows 10 user. So if you're interested in that, in having them run it, they're still they're polling people to find out whether you want it to be daytime, weekend, nighttime, whatever. You can email nslig@melbpc.org.au, and I'll put that in the newsletter tomorrow as well. So that you can just give them the feedback, say, hey, I'd love to do it on a Sunday at 6 a.m. before I go to church, or whatever it is. And, sorry? Right, yeah, before yoga, yeah. Or smashed avocado on toast breakfast at the local cafe, yeah. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Over and out.
Thanks, David. We always try and fit too much into the program, so I think we might be here till 9:15, if that's okay with everybody. We won't go beyond 9 o'clock unless you all are happy that we do that. Thank you. Then 9:15 will be our cut-off time. David, just a comment, and you really haven't got time to answer it. It seems to me that when we're looking at the future of the club, there's two groups we can think about. One is our current members, that John Hall has said the average age is 80. So at least half of us are older than 80. So if we're planning something for 10 years ahead, we're not quite so interested. But for the potential members, you know, we need to be thinking that.
I'm going to respond to that, and thank you for bringing that up. One thing that is absolute in my mind is we do not take anything away from existing members.
Absolutely.
That became a very serious bone of contention at one point in history, which I'm not going to detail. But certain people are no longer members of the club as a consequence. The interest of the current members will not be damaged in any way that we can help. That means iHelp continues for as long as there's a market for iHelp within the club. The email continues. What we did do back then, about a year ago, was I put forward the proposal that any new members from then on does not get an email account, because that email account is one of the millstones around our necks. So we won't propagate that forward. They just still will have a MelbPC email address just as a login kind of thingy, and Harry later can probably explain more about that. But that is cast in stone. Do not take anything away from current members. We're just adding to it to attract new, younger members. So in a sense, we can continue to provide the services to the more established members. And very likely, sort of at some point, and this is nothing decided, at some stage we'll just start charging higher subscriptions to the younger members who are using our 3D printers and our CNC machines and all that cool stuff. Thank you, Barry.
Thank you. Now, Mike Maxwell. Mike's subject is old world craftsmanship meets modern manufacturing. So as an engineer, I'm pretty interested in that.
So we are running late, so I'll make this brief for everyone. I had a little slideshow, or you know, a presentation, but it didn't say a whole lot. But the general idea is this: that let me just give you a quick anecdote. I don't know how many of you can remember your first microwave oven. I heated up a can of soup. That was the first thing I ever did with mine, and still think that's a pretty good use for them.
In the can?
No, not in the can. But anyway, I'm a professional chef now, but I've always been interested in cooking and reading cookbooks, and came across a cookbook for a microwave, and there was a recipe for cooking a turkey with a microwave. Well, I never did quite figure out if it was some sort of a thought exercise, you know, what if you were stranded on a desert island and you only had a turkey and I don't know. Or if it was really meant to convince you that this box was all you ever needed, you know. Never did figure out. But I've never tried cooking a turkey in a microwave, and it's not on my to-do list. So the point here is that our new technology is not always the end-all be-all. You know, 3D printers are great. I've absolutely fallen in love with 3D printing, and I see huge potential with them. But I don't think they do everything. So being a chef, I'm on my feet a lot. My feet hurt at the end of the day. Went to the podiatrist, and he ran his checks, and at the end he said, well, my recommendation is you lose 20 kilos and you don't stand up so much. Well, that, you know, That's pretty impractical stuff. Anyway, I've started producing inserts and buying inserts for my shoes and having shoes made and making custom shoes, just mostly out of necessity. And so that's, to me, having a background in model making in another career prior to being a chef. I was able to produce molds and the equipment needed to actually take an impression off my foot and then make a shoe. But with the 3D printing, much easier now to make the tools needed to then produce shoes. So that's kind of the idea. Oh, and now with the CNC that we have downstairs, it gets even easier. So what do we have here? So the idea is this: take a piece of cork footbed, or it will be a footbed. You take a picture of your foot. Well, no, it's too far into it. That's all right. Take a picture of your foot, black and white picture, and then there's a program called CamBam that we have here that will then use the grayscale gradient to produce a height map. And then that height map can be fed to the Mach 3 software for our CNC router. And so you can cut out your footbed, an actual shape of your foot. We've tried it on a small scale and it works fine. And it just took us a few minutes. So now the next step will be to produce an actual sandal. And you say, well, there's people out there printing 3D shoes. You can go online right now and there's plenty of people who will sell them to you, or you can download the plans, you can customize them for your own feet. Well, I don't want to wear a rubber shoe. I don't know, something about that doesn't appeal to me. The ones that I've had been fortunate enough to actually see, they just haven't been, to me, what I would call real shoes. They feel like, I don't know, a toy, a crock. Yeah, there you go. That's a good term for it. Yeah. Anyway, but so by using these traditional materials, leather, a cork footbed, and that's not to say that a 3D printing doesn't have a place in it. I have and do use, I don't know if we can get a shot of this, but 3D printing was used in making a sole for these shoes. And then you can still use leather straps, leather covering for your footbed here, and still have the comfort of shoes that you'd actually want to wear. And yeah, so that's the current project that I'm working on, and it is a combining of these modern manufacturing techniques, including AI in helping me edit my black and white photos to get the contrast I need and whatnot. I'm not really much of a photo editor, but with AI assist, I've been able to produce some. And anyway, so the blending of that modern manufacturing with things like these traditional materials of leather, cork footbeds. Working on one also for my wife right now, a pair of Uggs. So it'll still have the molded footbed, but cover it with the sheepskin, keep her feet warm this winter. So anyway, that's where I'll leave it. Any
Thank you very much for that, Mike. Now, Harry Lewis. Are you with us, Harry?
I am now, yes, thank you.
You want to talk to us about saving photos on the cloud?
Well, that was my plan, but given the time, I think I'll just give the assembled members a glimpse into the state of our little survey about Windows 10.
Okay, as you wish, though we've reached an agreement that we can go till 15 past.
Okay, well then, okay, I may get to the minimum about that then.
Okay.
Let me just do a share here, show you something. Right, so are you seeing my matrix now?
Yes.
So these are interim results of our survey. More data is already being processed, so this is only an indication of where we're going. But I think it nonetheless is quite interesting. The mail out went out Monday week, and that's just the number of current members who get a mail out. By a couple of days ago, 750 had opened it, which is quite a good score for a mail out to all members. And we've had altogether just over 300 replies. Now the objective questions, as it were, members got to say whether they're still using Windows 10, and you see that's almost 60%. Those who had no plan to do anything about it were 35% of the respondents, of course included in the 59%. The members who didn't own up to checking whether their computer was compatible with Windows 11 and had no plan is 15%. Members were very generous with their comments, so roughly half of them had something else to say. And there's another thing there that we're watching as they come in. Members were being basically asked for information, but some of them took the time to ask us for help on particular things. And so iHelp will be slowly working through those responses. What I'm expecting is going to happen over the next few days is that the team will decide on some response. We can, if necessary, make different mailing lists out of these responses and speak fairly directly to the members who seem to be in most need of guidance, who've got Windows 10 with or without compatible computers, and so far haven't got a decision what to do. A member of our team has already prepared an update to the iHelp section on the website, giving a summary of what we think are the alternatives open, which is not at all original, and most people in the game come up with the same list of all possibilities. So that's really here for putting it forward for information. I think I'll still then, as I've got till 9:15, I think I'll still go with my original plan, which is to ask anyone who's got in any comments or questions about this to hold them back for now. And I will say one or two things about saving photos to the cloud. This arose for me because a member did ask us for advice on adding to their existing cloud backup. And I had never thought about cloud photo storage in quite this way. And but anyone who's looked into the way that photos are supported within our main client systems for Microsoft, Google, and Apple has probably got a little bit confused because I find it a very confusing area. So just briefly summarizing what I think just about anybody in the room will know, if you have an iPhone or an iPad, you have an option, it goes for Macs as well, to save phones to iCloud. If you've got an Android phone or an Android tablet, it will either at one remove or two be saving your photos to Google Photos. I'm just going to summarize at this point, then go back and make one or two comments. So it turns out that the Microsoft OneDrive, which anyone with a newish PC will have, whether they use it or not, is also supported for saving photographs automatically, either from an Apple device or from an Android device. There's an iCloud app for both of those categories of device, and there's an option to have the photographs saved automatically. There is a bit of a catch with OneDrive, sorry, with iCloud, and this comes to one of the more nagging features of the Apple setup. When you use iCloud Photos on your iPhone or iPad, the original, or basically a file of that size and shape, is sent to your iCloud drive in the cloud. And what's retained on your local device is the thumbnail, a very much smaller file that can be used just to remind you what the photo was. If you open it on the device, it downloads it again from the internet. Now, anyone who's had mostly an iPhone, it will be, and not at that point invested in additional storage from Apple, will likely have very quickly bumped into the slightly paradoxical situation you get from Apple, who gives you 5 gigabytes of cloud store, which does include your email and backups of your devices, whereas your device is quite likely to have 64 or 128 gigabytes of store itself. But if you're going to share your photos between your different devices, they have to be in the cloud. And so I've met many people who have at that point spent what is a fairly modest sum of a bit under $2 a month, I think it is at the moment, to Apple, at least to upgrade that 5 gigabytes to 50. Those of us who are more in the Android and Google Photos world have a slightly different setup, because it's a default that your original photos get into the Google Google Drive, because Google Photos is a web-based service from top to bottom. The Apple system, if you look at the difference there, your Google Photos on your browser is where Google has put the toolkit to manage its photos. iCloud on the web does not have any editing tools at all. It's simply a store. So it'll be your Apple devices, which have broadly similar editing and management tools built into them, where you do the management. And that can be quite a challenge, particularly for users of an iPhone, because the amount of screen real estate you've got is so limited. Here's a catch I came across when dealing with that particular member. So you can have on your Apple device, you can have the Google Photos app. And that, with the appropriate setting, will upload all your new photos to Google Photos. And at that point, if you're a Google Photos user, then you don't worry too much about what's left on the iPhone, but you do actually need manually to delete the photographs. There's no automatic deletion. The Google Photos app is synchronized with Google Photos, just as in fact the Apple photo apps are synchronized. So if you take a photo on your iPad you can view it on your iPhone and so on. But the catch, if you happen to be somebody who's paying for 1 terabyte of storage from Microsoft in a OneDrive, that can be attractive as your biggest store for photos. But there's quite a catch there. And that's one of the main points I wanted to get across even in 2 minutes. Namely, that you can't use the OneDrive app to back up your photos with iCloud Photos on. You can see why that might be, because what gets left on the device is the thumbnail. And what you need to have backed up is the full-sized file. But you're in a bit of a quandary there, because at that rate, you're likely to have too much left on your Apple device, because all your photos are going to have to stay at full size. Now, if you really were mainly using the OneDrive, you shouldn't worry about that, because you would delete photos from your iPhone or your iPad, because the way that the Microsoft OneDrive system works is that it is a backup and it's not a synchronization. Once they've got into OneDrive, they don't get deleted if you delete things on the device. And that's so, with a OneDrive setup, you get a one-way backup. With the other systems, the 2 systems I'm talking about, which is the Apple system with iCloud Photos and the Google system with your Google Photos client, can access all your photos. It has a nice setting, the Google Photos app, for your mobile devices, where you can delete photos from the device without them being deleted from the cloud. So you can save up on local storage. When all this started, storage on mobile devices was much more limited than most of us had on our computers. But by now, although some of us start with a much smaller cloud store than we have on our devices, but if we want to have photos shared or backed up, we're going to have to get them into the cloud this way. So the storage capacity issues I wanted to probably not alert you to, but remind you of, because if you're in the game at all, you probably hit these problems one way or another. So where you sit as a MelbPC member, you have a 30 gigabyte drive from Google, which is, they call it My Drive, for curious rights issues to do with titling. You won't see them referring to it as the Google Drive, I don't think, but that's what it is. So if your personal Google account has only 15 gigabytes, as you probably know too, the entry-level file store for a Microsoft account that isn't a subscription account is 5 gigabytes, and the entry-level file store for an Apple account, when you buy your very expensive Apple device, you get a measly 5 gigabytes like everybody else in your Apple account. Finally, a brief word about another of the slightly curious aspects of all of this. So we're all pretty familiar with the situation with with Microsoft and Google. I'll start with Microsoft in this place, and editing files that are stored in the cloud, right? Microsoft does provide cut down versions of its Office applications for Word files and so on that are stored in your OneDrive. Also, if you want to use that editor, the online Word or the online Excel, the file has to be living in the OneDrive. Now, the same goes for Google, but there's a similar contrast between Microsoft and Google here, in that, to the one between Apple and Google in the case of photos. For Google, Google's Edit Office suite is a cloud service. So it's not only, well, it's primarily a cloud service. There's no desktop version of it at all. Whereas for Microsoft, of course, the primary editing suite is the one on your desktop. which is incidentally is quite well integrated with the cloud, so that you can it makes it quite easy to download, edit, and upload a file as if you were using an auxiliary editor for your cloud file. Okay. The situation with Apple, I think, is the same, that you get the Apple desktop suite in the cloud, as well as getting it on your device. But with Apple, it's very clear that the primary editor for a photograph is in your Mac, your iPhone, or your iPad. I think the toolboxes are pretty much the same, but you're going to be managing your photos on a device, albeit that the main store is in the cloud. In the case of Microsoft, I haven't fully tested this one, but there's no online internet photograph editing service at all, but there's a proviso there that you do have the OneDrive clients on your devices, and Microsoft Photos, which is their native Windows application for photos, can access the OneDrive folder that's inside your computer, which is synchronized with the cloud. It's a bit harder to get your head around that, and I think for most people, the OneDrive will be more attractive as a backup, including the one-way storage thing with good archiving, than it will be as a place where you keep actively a store of photos that you're managing. But I just put that in for good measure. And I hope by now I've persuaded you that the situation with storage of photos in the cloud is very confusing. So I think I'll stop at that point.